Welcome guys. In today's video, we are gonna break down the psychology and the persuasion tactics of somebody ultra famous, of somebody who is a master at persuasion and psychology, as somebody who is so persuasive they have persuaded everyone else to let them be the 47th president of the United States. Today we're going to cover Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is a highly polarizing figure. He's so polarizing, in fact, that people often love him or hate him. This video isn't about politics today. It's about the persuasion tactics and psychology tactics I think he uses as a person who specializes in persuasion on the public and in his interviews and things like this. We'll take a little look at that, but first I want to show you an interest graph to just demonstrate how popular he is. If you look over the last year, this is three very polarizing figures, very famous themselves all together. We've got the yellow line here, which is Andrew Tate. This is his popularity over the last year, who was once the most famous man in the world. We have the red line here, which is Elon Musk, who also is doing pretty well, and he's got a lot of attention around here. He's trending right. Then we've got Donald Trump, who you can look at the popularity on these two peaks here. Crazy stuff. To put that into context, here is Andrew Tate, the height of when he was the most famous, right? And here is Donald Trump when he has been the most searched for, the most Googled, right up here. So you can see the difference. So how does a person end up the most searched person in the world multiple times? How do they end up so persuasive that they can generate that much attention? Well, to tell you the truth, when I look into different types of highly persuasive figures, people who can command a lot of attention, they have always, without fail, got a history of being able to do that and actually knowing the importance of attention, right? Everyone these days, when we're trying to compete on, YouTube Shorts and YouTube and Instagram Reels, we all know the importance of the attention economy. But back in the 80s, did most people know the value of getting attention and what that can do for you? Let me tell you something, Donald Trump seemed to know. Here's an interview with him back from that time period.
Before he was a presidential candidate.
And I've been saying for years, keep the oil, don't let them have the oil.
By the way, these simple statements, keep the oil, don't let them have the oil, make America great again, these are taking advantage of something called the availability bias. And when information is readily available to us, it's easier to go in. So in marketing, to be ultra persuasive, we should have very, very simple messages. If you look at Apple and what they did with the iPhone and the iPod, their saying was 1,000 songs which you can have in your pocket, right? Simple phrasing, things which people can get behind. The simpler it is, the easier it is to inspire a movement. MAGA, make America great again. Keep the oil. Build a wall. All these very simple phrases which are catchy. Even the people on the other side who don't like him still associate these simple phrases with him. And it's a great way of spreading attention. Just a little side note there, but I thought that was quite interesting.
Before he was a reality TV star,
You're fired.
Donald Trump was a New York tabloid fixture. All through the 1980s, Trump was busy building something new, and it wasn't a skyscraper. Trump was creating a public persona, one that could be both funny and demeaning, arrogant and somehow in touch with the common man.
So look at that. We all obviously know he was, huge in business, but even in the 80s, he was fixing and creating and crafting this persona, a person that could be mean as well, but also a person who could resonate with the common man. The meanness gets the attention and makes the other business competitors talk about you. It hits the news headlines. We've seen this on recent interviews where he will, say something outrageous and people have to watch it. But then as well, on the flip side of that, he's got these commonalities with the common man, and you can see him kind of relatable. And so what does that suggest? One of the keys that they've studied in behavioral science and evolutionary psychology to being well liked is to being perceived as very similar with a person, to being relatable with a person. So for instance, even if you think back to high school, right? all the kids who were similar all used to hang around together. People with the most in common would all generally be in touch with each other, right? And they would do that because that's just how humans work. So he has this mean side, but then also has this side where people kind of root for him as well. They relate to him. They are liked by the common man. And he's been able to do this since the 80s, right? That's a long track record.
He comes off as being very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Arrogant?
Yeah, he's arrogant.
I like him. The man's got it made, got everything.
He often did this by picking fights.
He said, I think Donald Trump is an artful liar. I think he is a greedy, vicious, and arrogant man.
Well, I don't know, is that supposed to be a compliment or not? I'm not sure.
So even back in the 80s, he still has this ability to be insulted to his face or to get feedback, which is critical, right? And to just let it completely not affect him at all. That is a skill in itself, right? If you have seen any type of maybe heated conversation, it could have been on a podcast, you will see that it's actually very hard for people to not get emotionally involved, right? But when a person does get emotionally involved and they kind of snap, right, in a conversation like that where maybe they're talking to the media and the media is looking for a reaction, you know, all the public are saying this about you and X, Y, and Z. They're saying all this stuff about you. And it's hard not to get an emotional reaction out of that. But he keeps his cool. He has the ability to keep his cool. And because of this, nobody seems to hold power over them. When a person tries to get an emotional reaction out of you and you don't give them anything, that means that they can't hold power over you. And he has taken that from what he's obviously learned his entire life and his ability to fire back as well. And he still does that in, you know, modern day presidential debates.
In one of his biggest fights of the 1980s, he went up against media mogul Merv Griffin in a fight over a casino in Atlantic City.
Donald loves that perception. I won.
So what does this tell you? He is actually a person who readily seeks out conflict all times. Multiple lawsuits against people, even when not a lot of money is going to be won, right? This next guy here, he's saying how much Donald Trump would love to say, I won, right? And just keep parading around. He's obviously incredibly competitive as well. Just on the selection of interviews from the 1980s, you can already get a feel for what type of character was already present back then that has carried through to 40 years later.
Still, you know, a year later standing in New York going, I won. He wants to make sure everybody in America knows he won.
Trump carefully cultivated speculation about his future. In 1987, he ran a full-page ad in major newspapers that read like a political manifesto.
A blow-up of the ad is now on display at Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue.
The ad was irresistible to the New York press.
Trump has said quite seriously that he's a good enough bargainer to negotiate a nuclear disarmament treaty with the Russians.
Look at this. Even back in the 80s, he is a master at generating attention and getting the media's attention as well. And he's like almost leaving bait there for them. He's got that full page ad, which he's stuck up everywhere, and he's paid for it, right? And then he said something as outrageous that he is confident that he can negotiate with the Russians when it's not even really his responsibility back at that time. But what's he doing? He's doing it to stay relevant, to stay in the headlines, to say some sort of outrageous things so the media pick up on it and then they come after him. And I assume this is him being interviewed by them right now.
Trump refined his playbook. His attacks.
Steve, you're going to have to start pushing these people now a little bit because it's getting a little ridiculous as far as I'm concerned.
His boasts.
We'll probably sell an extra 10,000 season tickets, and that's a lot of tickets.
So it's very interesting watching what he's doing there. He's constantly sprinkling in his achievements to people. I was watching the podcast with him and Joe Rogan, and a lot of the comments from that podcast were people saying, you know, I'd really like to hear what he's going to do as president, but all he seems to have done a lot of the time is just talk about his achievements, what he's done, all the good things that he's done. And, you know, there were some comments that were kind of warring with those comments as well. But very, very interestingly is if you look at any people in power, any influential figures, they have this tendency to sprinkle in their achievements. Now, what are they doing? There is something called the authority bias. And the authority bias is essentially a bias in human psychology where we have a tendency to listen to figures who are perceived authority figures. We not only listen to them more, we comply with them and we obey them as well. So this has been found quite a lot throughout different studies. So what does this look like on a general basis? If I was to sit here as a person, you know, running a business / persuasion channel on YouTube and tell you to eat some sort of foods and they'd make you really strong, you probably wouldn't really listen to me. Very few people would listen to me because A, I'm not a health wellness YouTube channel, right? And B, I'm not a doctor as well. However, if your doctor was to sit you down and say you need to eat those same foods and they will make you big and strong, you are more likely to listen to your doctor. Why? Because he's an authority figure, right? So he has the credentials, the expertise, so you will most likely obey and comply with whatever he says. So that's how authority bias works. But what I notice about people who are maybe trying to sell something, trying to market a course, they will sprinkle in little triggers of authority bias, talk about, you know, what they have done, their achievements and things like this. But people who are highly influential, who have high amounts of power, like Donald Trump here, they have a tendency, people already know they're an authority figure, but they maintain it in conversations as well. They sprinkle extra little bits in just so people don't forget they are an authority figure. Thought that was interesting because I've noticed he's done it a few times just in this little clip, and that is a masterful way of getting more and more influence.
Now, even back in the 80s, many found Trump's over-the-top personality distasteful.
I believe that perhaps I'm portrayed differently than I actually am. I believe I'm portrayed in a rougher sense than the actual product. And I hope that's true, because I hope the actual product is a lot more mellow than the portrayal.
So we've seen this before where a person basically leans into the persona which they have about them to their own advantage. So he knows that the media and the people around him know him as the tough guy, and he believes that's actually too much, right? We've seen this with the likes of Conor McGregor, who for the last 8 years has been the party boy, right? But then when he comes into the octagon, you know, he puts up much more of a fight than the average party boy. I've seen this with other influential figures as well. We've seen this with like people who use their persona that was created to their advantage. Dan Bilzerian used the persona of being the trust fund baby, whether it's true or whether it's not, to his advantage in poker games, and people thought he was a dumb trust fund kid, and what he would do was he was actually quite good at poker, and he would starch the people at the table who were actually very, very rich if you look into his story. It's quite interesting when people use the persona knowing quite well how people perceive them to their own advantage.
That may be his biggest asset of all. When people attack Trump, they reinforce the version of Trump that Trump wants people to see. And inevitably, that keeps Trump's name in the news.
Just reading one of the comments here, and it says, I was wondering why this video wasn't so biased against Trump, and then I realized this video was posted before he became president, lol. It's weird seeing him with human-colored skin. So we can see he's a master at generating attention. He can generate attention from nothing. It's always been on his mind. He'll start, you know, lawsuits with people because he's incredibly competitive, and it probably keeps his name in the media as well. And he sprinkles in little parts of authority bias, even though, you know, he's already a huge brand name and people know him, right? He's got his name across his plane and things like this. Now let's look at what he does when he's actually getting that attention. Here is Donald Trump's 90 most shocking things he said during the election campaign. 8.3 million views from 8 years ago.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
Geez, did you see what he did there? He did something incredibly persuasive. He used group psychology to create a common enemy. There is a certain part of psychology, persuasive psychology, that's called the unity bias. And basically, if you look into how groups work, groups of people, whether they're family, whether they're all friends, right? People like to stick in their own groups, right? And people generally feel connected once they are in some part of a group, and that could be any type of group. It could be an online community, it could be a religion and politics, etc., right? Or it could be somebody just putting you all in a corner and being like, you're all now part of the group. They feel closer together. They feel bonded by the fact they're all together, right? On the flip side of that, people who are outside of that group can often be, you know, treated differently, perceived as the enemy, right? So he did something very, very interesting just in that clip there. And what he did was he said, the people they send from Mexico, they're not like you. They're not as great as you, right? He brought everyone together in a group. And then he labeled the worst types of traits for the people who are from Mexico, right? He labeled them, you know, as like murderers and all sorts of people like that. And when he does that, he creates something called the association bias. And when you describe somebody as, you know, a group of people as murderers, blah, 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 you are creating that common enemy. And the group which you've now just created can basically unite together against that common enemy. It was very quick. I'm not sure if he planned to do that or if he's just kind of that figure who can do these things on the fly. But basically, it created that sort of in-group, out-group dynamic there. Highly, highly persuasive stuff.
I love the Mexican people and their spirit, but the country of Mexico is killing us. I want to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall.
I want to build the wall. We need the wall. And Mexico will pay for the wall. But we have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
I want to build a wall. You can see repetition again and again of very simple messages. The human brain, if you look into studies about where people are told something, to do something, or that they should do something, basically people need to be told again and again and again to bring it to the forefront of their mind, to make it out to be a problem, right? To give it that availability, that accessibility, so they focus on it. Simple messages like, you go, I want to build a wall, I want to build a wall, I want to build a wall, is reminding the public of what a potential problem is, right? If you look at the likes of Andrew Tate, he does it as well. He says, the Matrix is coming for you. The Matrix, the Matrix, the Matrix attacks. The Matrix is keeping you poor, broke, weak, right? It's this common enemy which is created with the objective of, you know, uniting you together on their side, right? Very persuasive stuff.
And then I watched this idiot Lindsey Graham on television today, and he calls me a jackass. He's a jackass.
There's something very interesting which he does, and I think it's something that everyone truly appreciates, you know, everyone who votes for him, right, is the fact that when he says things from the bottom of his heart, right? What he is thinking, he says. And I think that level of authenticity, whether you hate him or whether you like him, the general public, from what I can say, are sick to death of being told one thing and being lied to, right? Because at least when you have a person who is telling you what they think, right? No other person who's running for president has stood on that stand before and starts calling a person a jackass and like naming people, right? Because it'd be classed as unprofessional. So he's kind of broke that barrier, that boundary which has always existed. And he's went, you know what, that person's a jackass. And the thing is I think the public would like to basically know what's going on in a politician's mind. What you see is what you get, rather than electing in someone who is saying all these nice things to you and doesn't mean any of them. That is almost more dangerous than, you know, electing in somebody who's at least transparent with what they're saying, even if you don't agree with them. That's my thoughts on it anyway. That's my thoughts on how the public perceive him. And I think that's how he almost gets a cult-like following, because they're just like, well, he might not be politically correct, but he's saying whatever is on his mind.
Of the toupee. This is on the front page of the New York Times. I don't wear a toupee.
I'll prove once and for all that it's mine, okay?
I actually love that he is up on the, you know, jokes and the banter and the memes, that he's not even got real hair, right? And he's just going along with the joke. I actually love that he's doing that. That there, once again, shows that he's not easily offended and doesn't get emotionally uptight about the whole situation and get funny with it, right? He's just kind of going along with the joke like, it's real, it's not a toupee. Little jokes like that from a psychological and from a persuasive point of view make somebody more relatable, because it's a common joke that, you know, a person might crack behind doors, right? And he's just kind of airing it out as if he's with friends. How he's making fun of those jokes in front of everyone there is basically how a person would act around friends who's taking a joke as well. That's important. That molds public perception.
Is it mine? Look.
It is.
It is. Say it, please.
Yes, I believe it is.
Thank you.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
So once again there, he didn't back down from that. When you get somebody who says something to you like that, which is deliberately trying to corner you and get a reaction out of you, if you agree with it, you look like an asshole, right? And say, yes, that is absolutely right. I do think of women like this. You look like an asshole. If you disagree with it, you look weak and you look like you could be backtracking. But instead what he did was he made a joke out of it and says, actually, only this person over here. And you hear the crowd roar in the background with laughter because the public, it's like almost going to a comedy show, right? And listening to a comedian. He kept his power there, but also as well, made a joke out of the situation, and like it once again, he didn't let it affect him again. So this is a masterclass in how a person is keeping power and keeping frame control and keeping, you know, overall control of the narrative as well. Like not backing down from it, not looking weak, just owning it and then making a joke out of it. And the joke is landing. And the reason why the joke is landing, because a million other people could have responded to that in a million different ways there. And most of those, because it's obviously a bit of a sensitive situation, right, of what the interview is actually asking him about women, you know, most of those people who responded to that could have come off as pretty weak or not got a laugh at all. But he's had so much screen time and has done so much speaking that he understands how to control the crowd. This is another key insight into why he is managing to get the attention he is, why he is as persuasive as he is.
Take a look. Look at her words. You tell me what you think. I don't think so. I don't think so.
All of these liars will be sued after the election is over.
When he says something like that as well, like I believe him that he's going to do that, and I believe that he probably has done that because he seems to punish people who don't agree with him. So I would believe that he does something like that as well. And also, it's creating that outrage, that spark. Everything he's saying, guys, here, I want you to understand, is polarizing. He is not sitting in the middle. He is polarizing some stuff, I believe he's saying for effect. And with that, it's getting a loyal bunch of people and a bunch of people who are indifferent as well. And also, on the flip side, a bunch of people who absolutely hate his message. But you can see when he says things like that, right, it's getting into those headlines, you know, it's creating that media attention. It's repulsing a different group of people. And now guess what that other group of people are going to do? They're going to go away and talk about him, right? And they're going to type angrily on their Facebook. What does that do? Well, they're going to reach their own networks of people. And when they reach their own networks of people, guess what? I can't believe Donald Trump said this. Some people from their network is going to then think, that's kind of an odd message for Donald Trump to say. I'm not really familiar with him. Watch some Donald Trump stuff, and then they're now going to follow him because they're like, actually, I really like all the other stuff. He's generated attention and then got them in, you know, with his other messages as well.
She's a world-class liar. Just look at her pathetic email server statements.
She's crooked Hillary. Don't you understand that? This is one of the most crooked politicians in history.
There we go with those simple statements again. Crooked Hillary, crooked Hillary. This is obviously from, you know, the previous election. Crooked Hillary, crooked Hillary. I saw him on the Joe Rogan Experience again talking about Kamala Harris's IQ and saying how low her IQ was.
Very low IQ person. She's a very low IQ. You know, I'm for taking tests too. I think anybody that runs for president should give them tests. And it's not an age thing, but I think you should take cognitive tests. She's a low IQ person. Low IQ.
Right, but it's obviously not just her.
You see that once again, getting that message across. Low IQ, crooked Hillary, low IQ Kamala, right? Again and again and again. These are easy, simple statements repeated again and again and again, which have the impact on making a person believe it. I don't know these people personally, I can't say, right? But what's interesting is he says these things again and again, very publicly. He'll do anything to win here. He's not PC when he goes on the podcast, which is what makes him so polarizing. People love to hear his true thoughts on how he's feeling, but as well, he slips in these little things which disparages his competition. Crooked Hillary, low IQ Kamala.
This is the legacy of Hillary Clinton. Death, destruction, terrorism, and weakness. She's the devil. Hillary Clinton is a bigot.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
See, he is painting that narrative again and again and again. You'd be in jail, crooked Hillary, and he said lots of other things just in that clip there. He's not afraid to, you know, go over that line there to completely destroy his competition and do it publicly. So a lot of politicians, again, you know, keep that PC format because they've all been brought up with the belief that the public must see our perfect selves. We can't have any bad press. Donald Trump's approach is completely counterintuitive. He's like, any bad press is good press because it's going to get me more attention. It's going to get, you know, a much bigger audience eventually, right? I'm just going to go through the period where all the interviewers, all the media hate me and all, how they all portray me, which once again feeds into his image.
Wouldn't that be embarrassing to lose to crooked Hillary Clinton? That would be terrible.
Is there anybody you'd like to apologize to right now yourself?
No.
No?
I always find it weird when media like tries to force people to apologize. You ever seen that before where like somebody will be forced to apologize and they'll apologize publicly, but it's never good enough for the media when the media do things like that. They will then like almost double down on like, you're a bad person narrative. Now you've apologized, you've admitted it, right? It's like never letting the person off the hook. I actually think this video aside, that was a great way of handling that question, is just saying, no, you wouldn't like to apologize.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails. Would I approve waterboarding? You bet your ass I'd approve it. You bet your ass. And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding.
It's so counterintuitive what he's doing. It really is. So, you know, other politicians would never say about how they are going to increase waterboarding, right? I'm sure there's a lot of political organizations and military organizations out there who do a lot of things which are not particularly legit, right? My friend, he works in politics. He used to some years ago. And he was quite high up in politics, right? You want to see the type of things. That's a story for another video, right? But like, you want to see the type of things which they used to do to each other, to their own opponents, to basically get seats in the UK. Crazy stuff, right? Crazy stuff. So I'm sure organizations do these type of things, but what they don't do is draw attention to it. They would never want to draw attention to it because when they draw attention to it, then they get the public's focus, then they get scrutinized, they get all the stigma around it, right? Donald Trump plays this completely different game. I don't follow politics, so for various different reasons, one of which I've just said. I am interested in persuasion and psychology and how people can generate attention, how people inspire, persuade, build movements in the public, how they can sell and things. Donald Trump's selling an idea here. And when I see things like that, that is so counterintuitive that no other person has said these things before. I'm like, maybe that's actually part of the reason why he's able to generate so much attention, because it is so novel. We're living in a time of social media, you know, and social media is quite matured now, right? You have multiple different platforms, all doing increasing things to grab your attention, increasingly complex algorithms to make sure you stay on their platform, right? And if you think about Donald Trump being a new agey president who has, you know, also doing this tactic, kind of like the algorithms, right? He's taking things which haven't ever been trialed before, and he is basically using it to generate attention. He's talking about he would be doing worse things than waterboarding. I find that like nuts to be honest with you, because politicians are so PC. They're not PC, but they pretend to be so PC. But he really is just ripping the cover off it. He's calling everyone a scam artist. He's calling Hillary a crook. He's calling Kamala low IQ. He's saying Hillary should be in jail. And he's saying this all in front of the public. And the public are like, you know what? This person is actually speaking with authenticity. And when you look at that, right, and you look at how everyone else is holding themselves, I am not surprised that this, you know, let's ignore the political aspect. I know you guys in the US as well, you know, some of you talk to me about it. You have like a lot of, there's a lot of things, problems going wrong, right? Same in the UK. But looking from just a persuasion and marketing aspect, like I just look at that, forgetting the policies. And I think to myself, there's no wonder he has managed to get such a large movement behind him.
Back, we take him back. Oh, come on back. Where were you? I was fighting for ISIS. Oh, come on back. Go home. Enjoy yourself.
And when he's saying things as well, he's saying it with a comical sort of twist, like what he's just said there. He's like, oh, just come on back, right? Come on back to our country. If you look at Conor McGregor in the UFC, his key star power is entertainment, right? And he has demolished all the other fighters in terms of stats of pay-per-views and the amount of attention he's generated, right? Because he's incredibly entertaining. He's entertaining the way he fights. He's entertaining the way he trash talks. He's entertaining all on social media. And in a way, that draws the eyeballs, right? More than the actual, you know, content, which is the, you know, his ability to fight. He's a better trash talker than he is a fighter. And Donald Trump here is entertaining to watch, right? This video here has got 8.3 million views, and I'm sure lots of people are arguing in the comments here, right? He's got 8.3 million views. He's entertaining people when he's speaking. He's not doing boring politician stuff because he's just making jokes that people would make in their own living room. It's very interesting.
ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS, okay? He's the founder. He founded ISIS. And I would say the co-founder would be crooked Hillary Clinton.
There you go again. He's doing that association bias. He's bringing up terrorist organizations now. The other person you can vote for is a co-founder. They have brought about one of the worst, you know, terrorist groups in the world. Heavy persuasive psychology, and as well, that's dark persuasion right there.
He said I had small hands. Actually, I'm 6'3", not 6'2", but he said I had small hands. They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before. Donald Trump has small hands. So I said, small hands. These guys know. I hit a ball 280 yards. Stand up, my club champion, stand up. Do I hit the ball good? Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong?
So much pressure on that guy there. I bet he was sweating, thinking to himself, I better not screw up here. But he's just taking all these jokes that are being used against him and he's just flipping them all around. What was that?
Did that explain the sniffles then?
So, very interesting how he does some of these things. He's always had his eye on getting as much attention as possible and basically, you know, baiting the media, even back in the 80s, baiting the media to interview him or to stay relevant in the headlines. He talks about his accomplishments quite a lot. He disparages his opponents strategically. He isn't worried to say things which would be considered not PC, right? He speaks his mind, which once again, you know, gets the American public on his side. And any type of insults that he has, he just seems to, you know, pass them all off. Very, very controversial figure. He's great at creating that common enemy as well for people to unite behind, using those very simple phrases, very simple bits of language. Hillary's a crook. I'm gonna build a wall, make America great again. Simple phrases repeated time and time and time again. And I also think he's got kind of a little bit like Conor McGregor. He's got that entertainment value when people watch as well. Now, this is obviously a controversial topic. So in the comments below, if you comment, try not to call each other stupid. I know on controversial videos like this, you guys love to absolutely go in the comment section and tear each other a new one. But please don't do that. Please try and keep it civilized. And if you do tear each other a new one, at least make it entertaining so I can read through it. I'm excited to see that. I actually don't know what to name this video because as I've been doing little bits of research on Donald Trump, I can see that places are talking about that they've been shadow banned. I've seen that Joe Rogan's experience, you know, on his podcast, his views shot up to like 47 or 49 million views on the YouTube video, and then they stopped. No one could find it on search or anything like that. It's very interesting. And when I was trying to search for Donald Trump and all these longer clips are coming up, they were all previously, like previous clips, which are from previous campaigns, as you saw from a little while ago. And I didn't have time to get the new sort of clips together just because I felt they were a little bit hidden. So I'm not really sure how the search algorithms, you know, respond to Donald Trump, but I guess we'll find out when this video gets 0 views at the end. But I hope you enjoyed this analysis. Donald Trump is an extremely persuasive figure who is masterful at gaining attention. Whether you like him or don't like him, you have to agree that he has the ability to get groups of people together to listen to him. And most importantly as well, if you're running some sort of business, it's important to take some sort of lessons. Maybe you could take some sort of persuasive lessons away from Donald Trump here. Ethically, of course, make sure that you do it ethically. But it's always interesting to see a person who is ultra persuasive, ultra amazing at getting attention, whether you like him or hate him. Okay. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Keep the comments clean. See you in the next one.